Yuji Itadori's Black Flash is insane. Despite no one actually being able to control the Black Flash at will, Yuji is so amazing that he'll make you think he's doing just that. Yuji Itadori doesn't even have a curse technique. Kind of. It's been hinted since the beginning of the series that one day, Yuji may awaken some sort of power-up, but as of recording this video, nothing's been confirmed at all. It's not like it's impossible for Yuji to have a curse technique even currently in the story and it just hasn't yet been revealed, but all I'm saying is that nothing has been outright stated or even confirmed. There's been hints here and there of Yuji possibly awakening all different kinds of techniques, from blood manipulation, soul swapping, anti-gravity, to even Sukuna's own cleave and dismantle, but there's always been this one card in particular that I think we're about to see Yuji use for the first time in over 100 chapters, and that's the Black Flash. In some of his toughest fights and against some of his strongest opponents, Yuji's been able to bring out one or even multiple Black Flashes in some of the clutchest moments we've ever seen. Even if you want to compare Yuji to Satoru Gojo himself, Yuji is by no means a rookie when it comes to using his technique and his mastery over his own cursed energy to bring out a Black Flash. In this video, I want to talk about Yuji's Black Flashes in the past, and how I can definitely see him landing another one very soon. If you would enjoy more Jujutsu Kaisen content like this, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, because YouTube tells me that 99% of you guys who watch my videos just aren't subscribed, so please subscribe and comment on some video ideas you want to see be done down below. In total, Yuji's landed his Black Flashes in 4 different fights. During the Kyoto Goodwill event, he landed his first ever Black Flash on Hanami, a special grade disaster curse, and just during the Goodwill event alone, Yuji managed to land 5 Black Flashes. Then during his battle against Esso and Kechizu, he also landed another Black Flash with Nobara. But it wasn't even too long after that before Yuji hit even more Black Flashes against Mahito during his final battle in Shibuya. But after all that, we haven't seen a single Black Flash from Yuji. It's definitely been a long time since we've seen Yuji touch the sparks of black. His last Black Flash against Mahito was all the way back in chapter 132, but as of recording this video, we're currently waiting for the release of chapter 247. In real time, that chapter came out December 7th of 2020, so it's been 3 years since Yuji's last Black Flash. It's also pretty funny that December 7th is also the same date that Yuji's first Black Flash in Shibuya appeared in the anime. But in the actual series itself, Yuji's last Black Flash was on October 31st, and it's currently December 24th, so it hasn't even really been that long. Overall, it's been a very long time since we've seen Yuji Itadori land a Black Flash, but I don't think it's gonna be so long before we see another one very soon. When it comes to power-ups, it's obvious that Yuji's the most popular candidate in his own series as someone who desperately needs one to grow stronger to compete with the rest of the cast. To put it simply, this is not Shibuya, and I'd argue that the stakes are higher than they've ever been. Not only is Sukuna currently roaming around at 20 fingers worth of his original power, but he's also back in his original Heian era form, the form that he took down entire armies of sorcerers from the golden age of Jujutsu. Satoru Gojo is also currently out of commission, and it's up to his students to finish the job, but even in that perspective, Yuji gets overshadowed pretty badly. In the last few chapters, Yuji's clearly changed just a bit. His arms and forearms look completely different and unlike anything we've ever seen. He's got these claw-like features similar to how Sukuna's hands looked when he incarnated inside of Yuji, but we don't know exactly what changed. As for where we are right now in the manga, the current plan is to pass on the Executioner Blade to Yuji Itadori to fulfill the role as Sukuna's executioner to Higuruma's judgment, and so Yuji can be the one to hand out a death sentence to the King of Curses. Because Higuruma's judgment can tell the difference between 2 souls in one body, and obviously the sentence is going to be 1 per person, the plan is to stab Sukuna with the Executioner Blade and let the judgment handle the rest. Now, can Yuji actually finish the job? I honestly don't really know. Even with Higuruma's curse becoming stronger after his death, I still don't know if it's going to be enough to take down Sukuna, and it's going to completely depend on how strong Yuji became in the last month that we didn't see him. Sukuna mentions that not just Yuji, but everybody else has leveled up their fundamentals and cursed energy strengthening in the last month, and Yuji's also able to do things like completely block Sukuna's slashing attacks using whatever's now on his arms, which before would have completely torn Yuji to shreds. Now, while there was damage sustained to Yuji's body, whatever seems to be on his arms completely protected him just fine. What's really impressive about this is that when you think about it, every single person who's ever been hit with Sukuna's slashes to some extent, whether it be Kusakabe or Satoru Gojo, has walked away with at least a bit of damage, but Yuji seems to be completely protected from wherever he can shield himself, with the only other exception being Kusakabe using a simple domain to nullify the effects of Sukuna's slashes. We've never seen anyone, from what we can tell, without the use of a technique, walk away this unscathed. It's definitely possible that he's awakened some sort of curse technique, and I'll talk about that possibility later in this video. scenario, but it would have to be some crazy power-up to say that Yuji can now stand his ground against opponents like Sukuna, or even when it just comes to being able to compete with a lot of other powerful people in the cast. Maki is a perfect example of why it feels like Yuji is simply being left behind. She's been compared to Yuji for both her insane physicals since the very first chapter of the manga, and even with her heavenly restriction, you can still compare Maki and Yuji for their insane physical strength. But now, it's completely different and everything has changed. Maki isn't the same person at all. She's reached a higher level of power from getting a greater understanding of herself and losing the last bit of cursed energy that always held her back from being as strong as she could have been. While Yuji and Maki might have been comparable before in certain aspects, with some statements that even flat out say that Yuji surpasses Maki in some areas, today, it's not even close. She's fighting on the level of Toji Zenin from 12 years ago, who took down both Satoru Gojo and Suguru Geto, and it's not a level where Yuji can compete at all. Even when they're fighting alongside each other, Yuji is clearly the one that's lagging behind. It comes to a point where Maki has to ask Yuji if she can speed up, probably knowing that he just might not be able to keep up with her anymore. Yuji was also getting tagged at times where Maki simply doesn't. Sukuna also makes a comment that it was better for Yorame to focus more cursed energy on the girl, being Maki, instead of Itadori. Even taking into account that Yuji was pretty badly damaged going into the next round against Sukuna with Maki by his side, he's still not anywhere near Maki's level anymore. That's not to mention that there's also other sorcerers that Yuji's fighting alongside who also completely overshadow him in power. Yuta Akotsu and Kinji Ikari, who are both arguably stronger than Maki, are both undoubtedly fighting on a special grade level. They're both the two sorcerers that Gojo calls out personally to take his place against Sukuna in the event that he himself became weaker than both of those two right now. We've seen Yuji scrap with Ikari and Yuta before, and it's easy to point out that he can't stand alongside either of them. When Kinjaku calls out 3 fighters from Jujutsu High to watch out for when Gojo finally goes down, he mentions those 3 I've already named, Maki Zenin, Kinji Ikari, and Yuta Akotsu. Meanwhile, Yuji's name is given near no respect whatsoever, and Sukuna even laughed in his face when he decided that he's not worth killing anymore. In the last month, Yuji's been training to take down Sukuna, and his recent displays in the manga are clearly showing off his progress. When he lands on the battlefield, the first thing you notice about Itadori are his arms. Everything from his forearms to his fingernails have completely changed. We don't have a clear answer yet on why at all, and we don't know if this is some byproduct of a curse technique or if Yuji's using some curse tool. I say curse tool because we've seen Yuta borrow a curse tool from Rika which appears to be sorta similar to this one, but that tool was broken by Oro way back in Sendai Colony, and the similarities pretty much stop after realizing that they're just both things that a sorcerer has around their forearm. Yuji only joined the battlefield this quickly because he and Higuruma planned to trial Sukuna by using Yuji's previous trial and testimony against the King of Curses, which explains why Yuji joined the battlefield before other fighters like Maki in the first place. When Yuji lands down, he begins taking on Sukuna alongside Higuruma with the help of Meimei, and after using her birds to create an opening, with just a single punch from Yuji, he somehow has managed to shake up Sukuna. Despite Sukuna blocking that strike with not just 1, but 3 of his hands, there's still some deeper effect that's lingering from that punch. After being shaken up, Sukuna really has no idea what he was just hit with, and neither do we. Even throughout his fight against Satoru Gojo, we have never seen Sukuna react like that to something as simple as a punch, especially from somebody as weak as Itadori. Whatever happened when landing that strike on Sukuna, it's unlike anything we've ever seen from Yuji. In the last month, something has clearly changed. He's clearly grown in more ways than one, and it's about time for Yuji to finally step up in power. While before, it always seemed that Yuji was extremely far behind compared to the other heavy hitters like Maki, Yuta, and Ikari, I don't think it's impossible for Yuji to close that gap at least a little bit if he hasn't already. It's important to keep in mind that Yuji is by far one of the fastest growing characters in the series when it comes to power, even compared to some of the greatest sorcerers around. It's easy to forget how new Itadori is to the world of Jujutsu in general, because only about 6 months ago, Yuji had no idea cursed energy or cursed spirits even existed, while those at the school like Yuta, Hikari, and Maki have all been a part of the sorcerer world for more than twice that long. Now, that definitely doesn't mean that Yuji was always weak, because he always had insane physical strength, and it's definitely an attribute that's helped him get as far as he did, but the difference in just experience between him and basically everybody else around besides Higuruma is massive. But even with no experience and just physical strength alone, Yuji is definitely anything but average. Even if we go back to the very first chapter, there's already a good example of Yuji having anything but average physical power. After playing a simple game of shot put with his gym teacher Mr. Takagi, Megami, who stopped to watch the game while looking for Sukuna's fingers, was very impressed by Yuji's performance. Without using any cursed energy whatsoever and playing a simple game of shot put, Megami understood that Yuji's physical strength was something unheard of. He even begins to ask himself if Yuji is the same as Maki Zenin, referring to the idea that Yuji might have been born physically gifted due to heavenly restriction. He was able to use his physical strength and adapt it to his mastery of cursed energy to quickly grow in power like nothing we've ever seen or heard of before. Yuji Itadori is a natural-born genius when it comes to fighting, and it's said back in Goodwill that it's because Yuji has a special eye. It's impossible for your hand to advance faster than your eye. If you don't have an eye that can judge quality, then you can't create something of value with your hand. It's a saying from the artistic community. It's also believed by many people that the rate of growth of people who possess this eye eclipses the rate of those who don't. And our protagonist and my GOAT Yuji Itadori is definitely one of those people. It's that eye that allowed Yuji to break down Todo and devour and learn from every exchange. It's clear to everyone, and even Todo himself agrees, that Yuji had begun growing rapidly in just a few hours. In just that short period of time, Yuji had gone from not knowing how to flow his cursed energy properly throughout his body to landing his very first Black Flash. Yuji Itadori's Black Flash is by far the strongest move in his arsenal. When in doubt or when pushed against the corner, you can always count on Itadori bringing out a Black Flash. It's just the thing that Yuji can use for a quick power up against the King of Curses, and it's the perfect way to showcase the return of Yuji's Black Flash. It's pretty insane in general to land just one Black Flash, and it's not something at all that's been experienced by every sorcerer, and it's pretty rare to achieve even at some of the highest levels. Sorcerers have their cursed energy flash black when it's applied within a very short window of time when landing strikes. To be precise, it's about shifting your cursed energy in 1/1,000,000th second of an attack. A Black Flash hit will drastically increase the normal power of a blow by itself to the power of 2.5. Like I just mentioned, the Black Flash doesn't just multiply your power, but it raises it exponentially. Using exponents as opposed to a multiplier like in most other shonen is a better way for increasing the power of a strike, as exponentation tends to amplify the values more than linear multiplication. It's why the effect of someone as strong as Gojo's punches compared to his Black Flash hits are so much different. While Sukuna could take Gojo's basic punches even when he's amplifying his hits with blue, he was knocked out instantly when he landed a Black Flash. You can think of the Black Flash as JJK's version of a critical hit, just like in a video game. When landing a Black Flash, it puts the sorcerer in a zone-like state. Using and manipulating cursed energy becomes more than extremely easy. Shifting and moving your cursed energy becomes natural to anyone who's landed a Black Flash, and it seems to be just as easy as breathing. It allows the sorcerer to find the core of cursed energy, similar to what Gojo felt when he unlocked and achieved reverse curse technique. Understanding the control it takes to land even just one Black Flash, along with the feeling that comes with touching the sparks of black, Yuji's understanding of his own cursed energy became nearly unmatched. Only those who have felt what it's like to land a Black Flash could ever reach that understanding of cursed energy manipulation. Their understanding completely eclipses and can't be compared to those who have never hit it. It's something that's impossible for a sorcerer to achieve on command. The sparks of black don't choose who to bless. However, one thing that most people don't bring up when it comes to Black Flashing is determination. We can clearly see that determination can raise one's chances of landing a Black Flash. It's normally when a character resolves his or herself to complete and overcome the goals right in front of them that their cursed energy flashes black. Yuji's always been a highly determined and motivated character up until Shibuya, which can also explain why he hasn't hit a single Black Flash since. Yuji is still extremely motivated and determined, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't been the same since Shibuya. Yuta says that everyone was exhausted both mentally and physically, but no one was more tired than Itadori. He was already knocked out looking out of commission just against Choso, then Sukuna incarnated and took over his body, and it only got worse. Shibuya wasn't even over by the time Yuji witnessed firsthand from the murderer himself the damage that was caused to hundreds of people, including his own allies, by someone who was wearing his own face. He was completely destroyed both mentally and physically many times before Shibuya was even over. He pushed through for survival till the very end, but there's clearly a lingering effect on his mentality. In the last month, Yuji better be more resolved than ever. After Sukuna took over Megami's body and his new vessel, he's already said that he's more than ready to eat anything to take down Sukuna. Fighting, combating, and taking down Ryoma and Sukuna might be the perfect motivation to give Yuji the determination he's been looking towards to bring out his final set of Black Flashes. With just one punch, he managed to shake up Sukuna so bad, he literally didn't even know what hit him. Combining that power with a Black Flash to give Yuji the boost in power he's been looking for is perfect. Choso had given Yuji that small booklet of resources research done by Yuki Tsukumo regarding the soul, so he's got that too. If anyone's gonna wake up Megami Fushiguro, it should be Itadori. Megami was the one who saved Yuji's life in the first place, and it's time for him to return the favor. Now, even if you do believe that Yuji in the last month achieved some other ability like soul swapping or blood manipulation, which there definitely is a fair bit of evidence to showcase so, that doesn't mean Yuji's game-ending move can't be a Black Flash. Narratively, I also find it pretty fitting for Yuji's game-ending move to be a Black Flash. Since we've met Yuji, he's had basically no control over his own life. Since the very first chapter, a lot of Yuji's decisions were being made for him without his control. It's not until he was separated from Sukuna that he started doing things not according to anybody else's plans but his own. Even his very first decision in the story to consume Sukuna's fingers isn't something Yuji is so sure he did out of his own free will. While Yuji knows that his choice to eat Sukuna's fingers out of his own free will was something he chose to do on his own, he doesn't understand how he could have been planned to Sukuna's vessel from the very start if it's a decision he made on a whim. Yuji's life had no agency whatsoever. He had no ability to pick his own path to his own future, and it's like he was always destined and planned to become Sukuna's vessel. Being Sukuna's vessel also obviously gave up Yuji's control in a physical sense as well, and when Sukuna would take over Yuji's body and begin committing heinous acts that he would never perform himself, that he would have to relive the memories of even when he's not turned into Sukuna, it really displays that no matter who's taken over his body, he's had no control or freedom from the very start. Having Itadori control the Black Flash, something that no sorcerer could have ever done before, while Yuji became the one who couldn't control a single thing in his own life from what it seemed like, is perfectly fitting to showcase how far he's come. Let Itadori call upon the power that doesn't choose who to answer. Let him be the one to land the strike that wakes up Megami Fushiguro to return the favor for saving his own life in the first place. By taking control of the one thing that stands more uncontrollable than all else in the world of Jujutsu, it'll be Itadori's soul-splitting Black Flash that frees Megami from a prison that he knows all too well and takes down the person who controlled Yuji's life from the start.